Did you ever watch a new shooter slap a red dot on their pistol, bring it up, and then start fishing around like they lost their damn car keys? Yeah, we're going to try to fix that today because a red dot ain't a magic bullet. It's simply a tool. And like any tool, you got to train with it or it's just going to slow you down. So lock in, load up, and get ready to see the light. Literally, this is the Trigger Happy Tactical Podcast. And today it's all about running your red dots like a pro. All right. Well, in this episode, we're breaking down everything you need to find the dot fast, use it right, and train like a savage, both in dry fire and live fire. We're taking and talking about fundamentals first because, right, your grip and presentation still matter. Dot brightness settings so you're not fighting some crazy starburst, and the occluded dot training because your eyes need to do their damn job. And for those of you who think you're ready for the prime time, we'll cover why shooting leagues will expose your weaknesses and make you faster and better. Remember, pistol red dots, they're not magic. They take work and training to make usage become muscle memory and bake these things into those neuro pathways, so it's just do. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to stop searching for the damn dot. This is all about presentation of the pistol and the dot. All right, first things first. If you're out here hunting for the dot every time you draw, you've already lost. If you bring that up and into your line of sight and it's not there and you're shaking and moving and you're twisting and you're doing all these crazy things with your arms and your head and your wrists, it's just not going to work for you at that time. You're done. It's over with. That little red dot should be right where you need it to be, right when you punch that gun out in front of your eyes. And guess what? That comes from solid fundamentals. If your fundamentals are shit, the dot is going to exacerbate that and only make it worse. And we'll cover a little bit more on that later. But you've got to have your shooting fundamentals down pat, because if your fundamentals aren't there, dot shooting isn't going to be there either. It's not going to magically turn you into some phenom of a shooter, even with shitty fundamentals. That's just not how this game is played. Remember the basics. Grip and stance matter. If your grip is trash, your dot is going to dance around like it's at a rave, right? Get high, firm grip on that pistol and get a good, solid stance. Without those things, it just ain't working. You also need to make sure that you get a really good, consistent presentation. Your gun should come up the same way every single time you present that firearm in front of your line of sight. If you're hunting or fishing for the dot, that's on you. That's not the optic being a pain in the ass. That's you not doing what you're supposed to be doing. That's a lack of understanding and a lack of training. Keep your head up, right? This is heads up shooting. Keep both eyes open, right? Have that peripheral vision. Have a good, solid view of your entire environment, and don't dip your head into the dot trying to find it, right? Bring the pistol and the dot up to your eyes, not the other way around. Bring your gun to your eyes, not your eyes down to the gun. You shouldn't look like a turtle trying to pull his head back into the shell. Now, before we really get on more about how to train with a dot, I think we do need to talk just a little bit about the quality of the dot itself. And we touched up a little bit on this on that last episode. And if you hadn't heard it yet, please go over there. Even if you think you know everything about dots, just go over there. Give it a little bit of a listen, right? But we got to talk about the quality of the dot itself. The quality of the dot is going to sort of somehow, some way going to dictate what type of training you can do or how advanced into your training you can go. With a good high quality dot, you can go way beyond just typical training at the range where you're just punching holes in paper or you're just doing very standard competition type training. With a good solid dot, we can do more things like injured arm simulation and learn to use our environment to rack our pistol off of using that dot, or start to train in the elements, right? Well, we know that that dot is going to maybe take some extreme temperatures, right? Or it's going to get some shock to it by hitting the ground because maybe you're shooting underneath a vehicle, or maybe it's going to get wet because you're out training in the snow or the rain. A good dot is going to stay with you through all of that sort of stuff. if you have a crummy dot and you're doing single arm simulation, where maybe you're simulating that you've got an injury to your arm and you've got a malfunction, or you have to do a magazine change with a singular arm and then rack the pistol back into play, having a good quality red dot to rack it off of, it's going to work. If you have a shitty dot, it's going to break and you're going to have some serious problems. So quality of dot is really going to kind of tell you what direction or how far you can go in a direction with some of your training. So let's talk about some of the hints and tricks on how to actually use this dot correctly. First things first, my number one biggest thing that I tell students all the time is do not treat your pistol dot like it's a rifle scope. It's literally almost 100% completely the opposite as a rifle scope. See, unlike a rifle scope where you kind of close one eye and you worry about your target eye relief or your optic eye relief, a red dot is the opposite of that, right? We keep both eyes open. Our eyes are staying threat or target focused, right? We're staring out at the target, unlike with iron sights where we're focused on that front sight of our firearm for the most part. The dot is allowing us to stay threat focused. And by keeping both eyes open, I have good peripherals, about 220 degrees of vision that I can still pay attention to in my environment, right? We do not want to focus and look through that tiny little screen of our dot. That's not what it's there for. Use your dot as a confirmation that you've pointed it, lined it up, and aligned your muzzle to the point of impact or that hit zone correctly. Your dot is point shooting with confirmation. That's all your dot should be. Your dot should just confirm that, yep, I've got that pistol pointed exactly where I want it to be, and that muzzle is perfectly lined up with that hit zone or that target, right? So it's point shooting, but with confirmation. And that's what's going to keep us fast, is understanding that we keep both eyes open and we point shoot with confirmation. So what are our really bare bone basic steps to starting to shoot with a pistol red dot? It's simple. And a lot of this is actually very much the same as just your simple iron shooting, your iron sight shooting or your point shooting, right? We start by staring right where we want that bullet to go. Try to burn a hole through your target right where you want that point of impact to be. And it's funny, I actually just picked up from a student of mine recently. He said, I learned a while ago from somebody that you stare at the point where you want the bullet to go with like the pure intent of hatred. And I'm like, wow, that's fucking deep. And I like it, right? Because that's what you're doing, right? What I want you to do is stare right where you want the bullet to go. Do not let your eyes come off where that bullet is going to go. You pierce a hole in that target, you burn a hole in that target, or you stare at it with complete hatred, right? Right where you want that bullet to go, just like point shooting. Then what you're going to do is you are going to press that firearm up and into your line of sight, again, bringing the gun to your eyes, not your eyes to the gun. Once that dot comes up into your line of sight and it's focused somewhere within your hit point, pull the trigger right away. No questions asked, no hesitation. Once that dot is right where you want it to be, instantaneously pull the trigger. We want to build that brain speed, right? Dot overlays where I want it to go. I simply push that trigger as fast as possible, right? And again, one of the things we're really thinking about here, and again, this does depend on the type of shooting, but when we're thinking about most types of competition shooting, or we're thinking about defensive shooting, we've got to realize we are not looking for perfect. And boy, oh boy, if this is one of my students hearing this right now, or any of my students hearing this right now, this is going to be something they've heard about a bajillion times, right? We are not looking for perfect. We're looking for good enough to get the job done. Anywhere that bullet hits inside your hit zone is as good as any other, right? Think about it. If we're looking at an IPSC, USPSA, IDPA, cardboard type target where you have that alpha zone, any hit within that alpha zone is a hit. If we're hitting a steel gong, any hit on that steel gong is a hit. In fact, that's what we call out in competition, right? Hit, right? And that lets us know that we hit that target. We didn't say, well, it was a mediocre hit, even though it was all in the alpha. No, an alpha is an alpha, or a box is an A box, right? And when we're thinking about this for self-defense, we could be looking at this as the cardiovascular triangle, right? From the, what I would say is like the base of the collarbones to the base of the ribs, forming this kind of triangle where all the little gooey bits in our body that don't like perforation resides. Any bullet in that cardiovascular triangle is just as good as any other round in that cardiovascular triangle. Our goal is, how fast can I get that muzzle aligned to that area? How fast can I get that dot to confirm that's where I want to go? And how fast can I get that trigger pulled at that point? So we're not looking for perfection. Any dot or any hit in any part of our hit zone that we want is just as good as any other, right? And don't wait for the dot to stop moving, because it won't. Think about this. You have a heavy firearm. Even if it's a light firearm, it's still heavy, right, in the grand scheme of things. And you're holding that out at almost full extension of your arms. So you've got this weight on this kind of extended platform, which is not going to make it light. And you're only holding on to it with two hands, right? 2 points of contact. Unlike a rifle or a shotgun, where we've got 4 points of contact holding this thing down for stability, we only have 2 points of contact. That's our left hand and our right hand holding this way out there in front of our faces, right? And you're always going to have a little bit of shake in your hands or in your shoulders and your arms, or a little fatigue or whatever. So the dot will not stop moving, and don't wait for it to move, right? Not looking for perfection. As soon as that dot hits where and drops into where that target is, that's it. Bang. Let her rip, tater chip, right? And that's going to become important when we talk about our follow-up shots. When we're talking about follow-up shots or shot multiples, right? We press that trigger one time, boom, let's get that next shot out. Well, wait for the dot to just simply fall back onto target. Don't rip it down or jerk it down onto your target. That's going to cause you to pass it up, right? Just let it fall right back onto target. And then the second that dot intercepts any of those hit zones that you want to hit, simply press the trigger again and then rinse and repeat, right? But this is where we need to understand we need to have good recoil management. And that good recoil management, again, is going to stem back from our basics, right? Do we have our basics down pat to have good recoil management? And if we've got good recoil management, that dot is going to be so intuitive as it falls back onto the strike zone to simply press the trigger again and let it fall back into the strike zone and pull the trigger again and rinse and repeat, right? The next, probably most important thing that we can talk about is do not hunt for the dot. If you cannot find the dot, don't hunt for it. Don't roll your wrists around like you're trying to crack them, right? Don't wiggle your arms or bend your elbows more or shrug your shoulders to kind of move it around, or start to turn your head left, right, up, down, try to move your left eye in front of it or your right eye in front of it. Don't do any of that. If you do that, that's it. It's over with. You lost. What I want you to simply get used to when training with a dot is, if I present that into my line of sight and I don't find the dot, bring that right back to my chest again, to that high compressed ready, stare where you want that bullet to go, press it back out into your line of sight. If I don't find it, bring it back in, punch it back out. If I don't find it, bring it back in, punch it back out. Bring it back in, boom. Oh, wow, there it is. I found it. Bang, press the trigger. See, if we start to roll our wrists around and our head around and all of that, and then finally we find that dot and we pull that trigger, my brain has not acknowledged where it needs to be lined up for my arms to be and my wrists to be and all of this sort of stuff to understand good kinesthetic alignment. It's not aligning anything. It just got lucky that the dot fell into the picture while you were rolling your body all around, right? We want to bring it back into our chest, punch it back out again so that our body goes, this is how our body needs to be lined up to find that dot. If you hunt, not only do you lose, but you are going to be creating training scars. And those training scars are extremely hard to get past, right? So don't build those training scars. Take the time, punch it in and out and in and out without hunting. Now, is this going to be frustrating? Oh my God, when you first start shooting, this absolutely can be, or start shooting with red dot, this absolutely can be infuriating. You're going to press it out and you're going to find it the first time and you're like, yes, I'm a fucking champion, right? And then you bring it back in and you press it back out and you're like, uh-oh. Fuck, I'm not even close. And then you'll bring it back in, you'll punch it out. Nope, no such luck. Bring it back in, punch it out. Oh, come on. Bring it back in, punch it back out. You could be freaking kidding me, right? And you start to get a little frustrated with yourself. That's fine. That's okay. Sometimes training is frustrating until the light bulb goes off, until the epiphany hits, right? So bring it in, punch it out, bring it in, punch it out. And if you're in mid shooting and you're going bang, 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 and it's working great, and all of a sudden you punch out and you can't find the dot, don't wiggle, bring it back in, punch it back out, shoot, right? So can it be frustrating? Yeah, it absolutely can be frustrating. Don't let it frustrate you. You're learning this, but you're learning it to get better at it. Don't cheat the system. This is how it works. So I would say the next topic I want to talk about is occluded dot training. It's like some fancy shit going on here, but basically what we're doing is we're training your eyes and we're training your brain and we're training them on how the hell they work together, right? And one of the best ways to train with a red dot is to block it out entirely. Yeah, you heard me correctly there. One of the best ways to train with a dot is to simply block the dot, I guess you would say. But actually, we're more importantly blocking the environment. But this is probably one of the most popular things that I will use with students in my red dot classes or in private lessons or people who are making this transition from iron sights to dots, and they seem to just be having a little bit of difficulty with it. So it's extremely popular to use, or at least I use it a lot in training. And this is for new students or people who've been using a dot for a very long time and just aren't using it correctly, which I see with a ton of seasoned shooters. People making that transition who are competitive shooters. I use this a lot with competition shooters who just want to get faster and better with their dot. So what is occluded training? It's literally covering the outer lens of your red dot, meaning the side of the glass that's closest to the muzzle or the ejection port. We're simply blocking the glass there. And yes, it completely eliminates your ability to see through that dot. But the thing is, or to see through the glass of your dot. But the thing is you still see your dot because see, that's on the outside of your glass. The LED is still projecting the image against the inside of that glass, and it's still reflecting it back to your eyeballs. So you're still seeing your dot. You're just not seeing any exterior environment through the dot, I guess what you're saying. This is where it starts to seem kind of weird for people, because as soon as I first grab that thing that I use for occlusion and I cover that front lens up, people look at me like, you're ridiculous. This is stupid, and I don't know what you're trying to do to me. You covered up the glass. I now can't see out of it. Trust the process, my friend, right? If you're using the dot correctly, your brain is going to use one eye now to focus in on the threat or the target. It's going to use the other eye to look at the dot, and then it's going to merge these two images together, superimposing the dot onto the target. And it's crazy because when I do this with students, majority of the time I hear something like, I don't know what this voodoo magic is. And that's exactly what it feels like. Cause it's like, you blocked it, jerk. Why did you do that? I'm not going to be able to see what's going on. But it's the way our brain works normally anyways, right? You got your left eye and your right eye. Well, for most of us, right? And it's seeing two images, and it's taking those two images and it merges them together into one image, right? And it actually does some editing, right? It does some processing there, right? With our nose. We don't see our nose in these two images, even though our eyes can very clearly identify our nose as there. But our brain takes two images, the left eye and the right eye, and it merges them together into one image, right? It superimposes them on top of each other, excluding our nose. No different when we do occlusion training with our dot. It's using one eye to focus on the image or the threat, one eye to focus on that dot, and it merges the two images together, superimposing the dot onto our target without being able to see through that front objective lens of the red dot system. It is crazy, and the first time you shoot with it, it's super, super cool, and this is usually the time where the big light bulb goes off with students. And they're like, oh my God, now I understand. Now I see it. And this allows us to stay focused on the threat or our target, as opposed to using our dot like that rifle scope. We're looking at it. We're looking through it. We're not doing that. Remember, it's a dot. It's a confirmation to know that we're pointing at the thing correctly, at that target correctly. Now, what can we use for occlusion training? When I first started doing occlusion training with people, I always carried a roll of painter's tape with me. Painter's tape was like the best thing. It didn't leave any residue. It stuck mediocre. If that front glass on your student or your, dot was kind of dirty, it probably wouldn't stick at all. So you do have to clean the lens to get that painter's tape to stick. And sometimes it does fall off halfway through training, but that's okay. It's painter's tape. Just, apply another piece of painter's tape to it. It's not like it's super expensive stuff. You can use like the dots or the pasties that you use for like IDPA, USPSA, IPSC cardboard targets. Use those brown or those white or those black stickies, the round ones or the square ones, and just put it over that front objective lens. Those do sometimes, depending on how good or how cheap your dots are, they will leave a little bit of a residue on the glass. So it's a great way to piss yourself off or your students off by leaving a little sticky glue on there. But again, it comes off easy with lens red dot, lens cleaner. But my favorite product, and if you listen to the SHOT Show episode, one of my favorite products in all of SHOT Show was probably the cheapest, most simplest product at all of SHOT Show. And I freaking love it. And it's something now that I use all the time for students and in classes, and I talk about it. And again, I have no affiliation with this company whatsoever. I was just stoked to actually see this product out there. And it's by OptiGuard, and OptiGuard makes this optic protector, right? Which is kind of a condom for your red dot. Definitely word protection for your red dot. What it does is it protects the dot from scratches and getting hit and stuff like that, and creates a little bit of a buffer to your front objective lens. But most importantly for me, to be honest with you, I can care less about protecting the optic. Buy good quality optic, you don't have to worry about it. But it has an occlusion trainer that you can get for it, which is just simply a black plastic cover that snaps into the OptiGuard, and it covers that front lens, and you can't see anything through it. And I never have to worry about it falling off mid-training. I don't worry about issues with it coming in and out of holsters. I don't worry about, the ejection port or ejection chamber gases blowing it off the front lens. The OptiGuard trainer is it's badass. And they're stupidly cheap. And they do make them for most of the popular optics that are out there. And I get emails from them all the time saying, hey, we got this new product that came out for this new optic. So they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, with more and more, SKUs being involved with that. But it's awesome. It's an awesome product. The other cool thing that you can do with optic occlusion is if you cover up that front lens, it helps a lot if you're shooting outside in really bright environments that wash your dot out. Sometimes if you're shooting in stupidly bright environments, it will bleach or it'll wash that dot out and you can't see anything. If you use one of those occlusion lenses, it will darken that all out. Your dot will be nice and bright in those bright light environments that normally wash it out. So occlusion training is awesome, and occluding the dot can help you even outside in really bright light environments. But occlusion training is probably the thing that I see help people the most when learning how to use their red dots correctly. Now, let's talk a little bit about dry fire practice. How do we really practice learning our dot or training with our dot in dry fire? And dry fire is always going to be your secret to speed. There's no questions asked there. Dry fire really separates the amateurs from the true badasses. If you ain't dry firing, you're simply wasting your range time, right? Because if we don't do any homework at home, then when we get to do our test, which is at the range, we haven't really built any of this stuff into our muscle memory, and you're starting to waste your range time by relearning yourself or retraining yourself back into it. So do yourself a favor, dry fire the hell out of your firearms. Yes, you can dry fire your guns, people. It's okay. Are there some exceptions to that? There are, but majority of most modern firearms, dry fire the living shit out of them. I have by far more dry fire trigger presses in my guns. I mean, tenfold, hundredfold than I do actual rounds coming out of that gun. Now, some of it is because I'm stupidly ADHD, and while sitting at my desk and I have to talk to people on the phone, yeah, I'm dry fire practicing while I'm talking to you on the phone. Just know that. If you're talking to me on the phone at work, I'm probably dry fire practicing at the same time. That's the beauty of ADHD, right? So how do we do that? Oh, first things first, we have an unloaded firearm, no ammunition, even remotely close to where we're at. Unloaded, check it numerous times. If you want to throw a mini chamber flag in there that goes off to the side that doesn't get in front of your dot, hit it, gives you a good peace of mind. Start with your target somewhere at eye level, right? About the size of a Post-it note. Personally, Post-it notes are freaking great for this. Take a Post-it note, slap it up on the wall. Take about 10-foot step back away from it. So be at 10 feet away from your target. Take your firearm, bring it to that high compressed ready, orienting that muzzle towards that threat, right? Already start to get that muzzle lined up to be in line with that target from being at that high compressed ready. Then press it out, right? Push that gun up and into your line of sight. As soon as that dot superimposes itself onto that Post-it note, bang, pull the trigger, bring it back in again, stare right where you want it to go, press it back out, do it again. Stay threat focused or, Post-it note focused, I guess you'd say. And as soon as that dot hits that Post-it note, pull the trigger right away, bring it back into your chest right away, right? And just keep doing that over and over and over and over and over again. Stare right where you want that dot to go, the dead center of that Post-it note, press it up into your line of sight, bang, let it go, bring it back in. And remember, do not hunt. If that dot isn't where you want it to be, bring that back to your chest, punch it back out, and do it again and again and again and again. After you've done that a few times, right, and you're ready to move on to targets at different heights, different distances, different sizes, punching in and out each and every time. Take a few Post-it notes, slap them all over a room that you're in, right? Some on your left, some to your right, some in front of you, some behind you, some very, very high, some very, very low. I mean, mix these sorts of things up so that we're moving that gun around each and every time, and we're getting used to shooting at different elevations and at different distances, and we're finding it. But again, remember, get your eyes there, right? Remember, your eyes move before your gun moves. This is going to stop you from getting stuck or sucked into your optic. Remember, eyes, then gun, eyes, then gun, eyes, gun, eyes, gun, right? That's how it goes. So what we do is we find our target with our eyes, we stare at it, we press out, dot, bang, right? Now that gun stays at that target that I just shot. I move my eyes and my head to find the next target. Then I bring my gun over and intercept, bang, press the trigger again. Eyes, gun, eyes, gun. Always get your eyes to your target before your gun. Now, move on to keeping that gun at arm's extension, right? Before we were bringing it in and out, right, from that high compressed ready. Next time, keep your gun out at full extension, right? Press that out, find it, bang, right? Move your eyes, swing that gun around until your optic intercepts your target in your eyes, pull that trigger again. And again, remember, don't get sucked into that optic or stuck into that optic, because if you do, and you're staring through that tiny little itty bitty window, you're most likely going to pass your target up and you're going to bounce back and forth, or you're going to miss your target, right? Keep moving your eyes, move your gun, and then move your eyes, and then move your gun, right? Bring that firearm over to meet your eyes in your line of sight. And then as soon as those intercept, bang, pull that trigger. Now that you can do anywhere. You can literally do that in a room, right? Standing up. You can do that sitting down at your couch, right? You can sit on your couch and you can find different things on your walls and do that, right? You might want to close your blinds and stuff like that. You don't want your lunatic neighbors going, oh my God, this crazy guy is doing weird shit in his house with a gun. So you may want to, close your blinds or something like that. But this can be done anywhere you have the ability to do that, right? Now that's our dry fire practice. Next is our live fire practice. Live fire. This is the proof in the shooting, right? The proof is in the pudding with this one, right? Dry fire practice gets you prepped for all of this. Live fire practice tells you the truth on how your dry fire practice is going or how you're actually going to perform. Start slow, man. Build that speed up, right? Again, slow is smooth, smooth is fast kind of adage when it comes to it. Get our accuracy there first with our dot, right? Be accurate with that dot. Get that dot where you need it to be, and then speed will follow it. When we're doing our our live fire practice, these are the same drills that we do at our dry fire practice. We're just actually pulling the trigger now, right? Start with a single target, single shot, high compressed ready. Push it out, bang, bring it back in. Push it out, bang, bring it back in. It's going to help build that kinesthetic alignment. It's going to help build that speed up. Then do multi-hit target, right? Good target for multi-hit targets are going to be like when you go to the range, get the target that has like the 6 circles or 5 ovals, or the 6 balloons or something like that, that have hit points, at the top of the target, the middle of the target, the bottom of the target, the left, to the right, et cetera, right? Shoot one, then move on to the next hit point on the target, shoot it. Move on to the next hit point on the target and shoot it, right? Work all of this from high compressed ready and press it out, singular shot on each one of those hits, right? And then get your eyes locked onto that next one, press it back out, bang. Move your eyes to the next one, press it back out, bang, right? Repeat this over and over and over again. And then simply change it up by keeping the gun and your arms out at full extension now, right? Find it, press it out, find it with, find the dot on your target, press the trigger, bang, keep your arms out there, find the next target with your eyes, bring and intercept your optic and your eyes together, boom, hit it again. Now move up and down on that target, left to right on that target, high left to bottom right, et cetera, right? Get the gun in your eyes and different perspectives of your optic and your gun and finding it and doing all of that. Then start working on shot multiples. Shot multiples are super important if the place that you're shooting at allows it. Obviously, ranges have rules. Don't break the range's rules. Don't go into your range and be like, well, Jeremy over at Trigger Happy Tactical Podcast told me that I should be practicing my double taps and my triple taps, and I know you guys don't allow it, but Jeremy said so. It's not going to work for you. It's just not how shit's done, right? But start working on shot multiples, right? Work on your double taps if you can. Work on your triple taps if you can, right? Pop, pop, or pop, 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 right? However you can do it. Start to learn how to manage your recoil and learn how to see that dot dropping back onto target, right? So double taps, right? Not 2 slow shots, bang, bang. That's just 2 singular shots. A double tap should be pop, pop, right? As fast as you can while still making sure that you're accurate and hitting your target. But learn how to manage your recoil and learn how to watch the dot fall back onto target, bang, and then pull the trigger again. Bang, as it falls back into your line of sight, and pull the trigger again and try to get faster and faster and faster with it. Another cool thing is do not be afraid to use a shot timer at home or on the range. Most ranges will allow you to use a shot timer. Turn it down so you don't annoy the shit out of everybody else on the range, but bring a shot timer to the range. I love it when I'm on the range, an RSO, or I'm teaching or something like that, and I see somebody out there with a shot timer, because I understand now that they're trying to get faster and they're trying to get better at it, right? So don't be afraid to use a shot timer. You can use them in dry fire. A lot of them will even take and understand the hits of dry fire, especially if you use something like a Mantis system. You can get free shot timer programs for your phone. They work not great, but at least it gives you the auditory beep, right? Even good shot timers, they're not super expensive, right? So shot timers can help you at least put a number to it, right? How fast am I getting that shot out from the beep? And then use that, your splits and et cetera from it. The other thing is take classes and formal training. I'm giving you a head start here in this podcast. I'm giving you the tools to use to figure out how to use a red dot, to start your practice, to start your training, to start building that muscle memory and the kinesthetic alignment up. But take a class, get some formal training on red dots. An instructor is going to be able to see the small things that you can't see or you can't feel. And they're going to be able to say, okay, great, you did a great job, but I noticed you were fishing, right? Meaning you were bringing the gun up above your line of sight and dropping it into your line of sight, right? Which could cause us to shoot too high or too low. Or I noticed you were bowling with that gun, meaning you were swinging it from low up into your line of sight with this kind of upward swing. And again, you were overpassing or you were shooting too early or too late with it. So an instructor, if they're good, is going to be able to see these small little finite details that you can't see or you can't feel. And never be afraid to take the same class twice. Sometimes you'll take the class the first time and you learn so much that you were just on this complete cognitive overload by the time you're done with the class, and not everything's stuck. You take the class a second time and you're like, oh shit, I didn't notice those small details that he was talking about or she was talking about. Now I can implement those small details. So don't be afraid to take the same class twice. There is nothing wrong with that. Most instructors will not be like, no, bad. You already took this class once. You're not doing this shit again. Most instructors will not only have no problem with it, but a lot of instructors will actually like that and say, wow, okay, this person is dedicated to understanding their training better and to understand their firearm better and working them and that firearm together, right? So formal training classes, private lessons. The next thing that I will always tell people to get involved with is a shooting league. Get involved with some sort of shooting league. So you think you're fast, right? You think your fundamentals are good and solid, right? Go to a shooting league and actually find out how good your fundamentals are. Nothing exposes weaknesses in your shooting like pressure. Whew. If you're missing the easy shots, maybe your fundamentals aren't as tight as you thought they were. Remember, shooting with some speed, shooting with some movement, shooting slightly off balance or off angle is a hell of a lot different than shooting in a bay with just a piece of paper at the same distance you set it out to. Radically different things, right? Adrenaline is fucking amazing, but it will also completely screw you up, right? Competition will really help you with speed versus accuracy and the balance thereof. If you've ever taken my defensive shooting fundamentals class, DSF, one thing you're going to hear me harp about all the time, or even my concealed carry class, I talk about a little bit. Shooting is always a consistent balance of speed versus accuracy, and your target or what you're doing will dictate, am I more speed than accuracy, more accuracy than speed, or am I kind of a nice balance of both? Competition forces you to find and understand that balance of speed and accuracy and where I need to drive more to, speed or accuracy, accuracy or speed. Competition shooting gets you better faster. Nothing makes you improve like a little friendly fucking humiliation, right? Nothing makes you improve like being humiliated in front of a bunch of people like, oh man, I thought I was hot shit. And then I got out here and started shooting and realized I'm just cold shit. Just kidding. But it will really show you the things that you really just have to work on. I run 2 shooting competition leagues, a beginner and an advanced competition shooting league. And ours is based solely on defensive principles. But it is a great way to say, listen, I can't gain as much as I want to out of shooting in that bay with that stationary piece of paper. I want to join something that allows me to learn and apply it with some speed and apply it with some adrenaline coursing through my body. And it allows you to maybe do things like shoot behind barricade, cover concealment, or shooting from a kneeling or a prone position, or shooting through small, narrow windows, or shooting while walking forward or backwards or side to side, or speed mag changes. So competition leagues help with that tremendously. And to be honest with you, if you don't care about the competition, it doesn't make a difference. I would say a majority, maybe not a majority, but 50% of the people who join my leagues or our leagues at D5 join it because they care about the competition, and the other 50% just do it because that's a great way to every week get that type of training in, and they can give 2 shits on whether they get 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th place or whatever it is. They're just there to train and learn. That's what it's all about for them. So let's talk a little bit about the setup really quick on how your dot should be set up from a brightness standpoint. All the time on the range or in training or in class, people want to show off their guns. And it's a great thing. I love it when somebody has pride in their gun and they hand me the gun and they go, hey, Jeremy, check this badass out. And, check out the trigger or check out the blah, blah, blah. And you pick it up and you're like, dude, this gun is a bad bitch. And then you press it out into your line of sight, look through the dot, and you're like, oh my God, how do you even see anything, right? It's just this big explosion of red dot and you can't see anything, right? The rule of thumb here is not too bright, not too dim. If your dot looks like a supernova, turn that thing down. If you have to squint to see it because you can't see it at all and it's just like, I think that's the dot, turn it up. It's really that simple. Your dot should be somewhat transparent, right? So you can see a bit of your target through it if that's possible for your eyes. Remember, dots and shooting and all of this sort of stuff, it's not really a universal or a one size fits all. What's the perfect dot brightness setting for me is a little bit different for you, is a little bit different for the next person, right? But my general rule of thumb is I want to have a little transparency in my dots so I can still see what's going on beyond that dot, even at the point of where that dot is. Make it as dim as you can while still being able to see it. If the dot is too bright, you can cause some serious problems. One, you will see less of the target. If that dot is really, really, really bright, that's it. You won't see that point of placement on your target. You might not see your impact. At distance or with smaller targets, it might be gone. If that dot is so much larger because it's bloomed out or it's too damn bright, you might lose the target completely. It just might not be there. It's gone, disappears, right? It's hiding behind the dot. And now what do I do? Am I actually on target? Is there actually a target there? I don't know. It can cause headaches. Staring at that bright LED in your eyeballs or pointing at your eyeballs, reflecting towards your eyeballs can feel like somebody's pointing a laser pointer in your eyes, right? It's terrible. And it can give you some headaches. When you're using it for 1 or 2 minutes, at the range, if that's all you're using it, probably not going to be a big deal for a headache. But if you're actually using it for a full hour session on the range or a 4-hour class or an 8-hour class, like some of my classes are, you're going to get a headache. And if you have stigmatisms, it can also cause a huge issue. Stigmatism can cause this massive star bursting, which can start to create pain in your eyes, which then can become a headache, right, at the same time. And if it's too bright, it can confuse the eyes and it can make you focus on the dot and not the target. If that dot is this bright, shiny beacon right in front of your face, sometimes your eyes stop staring at the target or the threat and they start staring at that bright object and go, wow, look at that shiny, right? But that's a problem. We want to ensure that we're staying threat focused, not dot focused, right? Get out of the dot. Don't get sucked into that dot. Play around with your dot brightness in different light environments, right? So what is the right dot setting for shooting on a darker indoor range is going to be completely different versus what it's going to be like at high noon on an outdoor range in the middle of summer, right? So mess around with your dot brightness setting. And if that gun is staged for home defense, think about the environment you could potentially be shooting in. Is it more likely that we're going to be shooting during the day in a bright house? Or is it more likely we're going to be shooting in a home defensive scenario at 2:00 in the morning when my whole house is dark? So think about what brightness setting you want for stuff like that. There are some red dot systems for pistols that have auto-adjusting dots. These things can be really good, but they can also be a real big pain in the ass because they're kind of predicting what they think should be the perfect dot setting depending on the ambient light that's coming into that sensor of sorts. I've got them on a few of my optics. I used them for a little while and then turned them off because they never seemed to be right. They were either too bright or too dim for the environment. I just didn't like the automatic settings on them, so I turned that automatic setting off, which most will allow you to do. But for some people, it works just great. I've heard plenty of people say it's the perfect setting every time. Like, it's great. I'm in the dark. Boom, there it is. It's perfect. And I'm out in the bright light. And bam, there it is. It's adjusted itself perfectly and extremely fast. So it may work for you. But I would say before you rely on the auto brightness setting, find somebody who's got one or go to a gun shop and ask if you can see one and cover it up with your arm, with your hand, and then focus it on the light and get it to dim and bright and dim and bright and see if you like it, right? Different strokes for different folks as far as that goes. But that is it. I mean, that's really this episode on learning how to use a red dot, right? And remember, master the dot, master the gun. This is just how it goes. A red dot is just a tool, man. It's not a cheat code. But if you use it right, it surely will feel like you're cheating because it kind of is in some way, shape, or form if you're doing it correctly. If you train right, it'll make you faster, more accurate, and more confident. But if you skip those fundamentals, you're just going to be a slower, lazier shooter with an expensive sight to brag about, but without any sort of real functionality to it. So put in the work, dry fire, live fire, train under pressure. And remember, if you can't find the dot, the problem ain't the optic, it's you. Don't use the dot as a crutch for shitty shooting. Use it as a shooting enhancement for your good shooting abilities. And that's it for this episode of Trigger Happy Tactical Podcast. Now get out there, train hard, and make that dot do the work for you. Remember, lock it in, load it up, and I'll catch you next time.